Hi, this is Ben Toulson from thebodyinsight.com. Just going over the best rotator cuff exercise according to the evidence or the research that's out there. So, first thing, before we get into some of the research articles on the best exercises for the rotator cuff muscles, they're going to be using a percentage of the MVIC. So, what that stands for is MVIC stands for maximal voluntary isometric contraction. In order for an exercise to be considered a strengthening exercise, most research articles will use 40% as the minimum. Some can use up to 60% or above. Generally, an exercise that is below 40% is considered more of an endurance or a motor control type exercise. So as we're going through and looking at these research articles, the higher the number, the more active the muscle is, and the better that exercise is for that particular muscle. So first we're going to look at a research paper from Reinhold et al. From 2004. So this is for just the infraspinatus muscle. And so you can see on the side that the side lying external rotation at 0 degrees of abduction, which is that top picture, had the highest MVIC or the highest amount of activity in the muscle during that exercise. And then the next highest exercise was the standing external rotation in the scapular plane. And that's what the bottom picture is showing. And then these next three were all about the same at 50% of MVIC. So we have the prone external rotation and 90 degrees of abduction, which is laying on your stomach with your hand out at 90 degrees, doing external rotation that way. Standing external rotation at 90 degrees of abduction is in the bottom corner, where you're standing elbow equal with shoulder and rotating that way. And then the last exercise that was about the same as far as the MVIC is concerned was the standing external rotation with the towel roll. And again, according to this research, all three of these, when used with the same weight, had the same amount of contraction in the infraspinatus muscle. In teres minor, these you're going to expect they'd be very similar to the infraspinatus just based on the anatomy. And so we can see the exact same thing as the infraspinatus. The highest contraction or the highest activity was in the side lying external rotation, and then followed by the same exercise as the infraspinatus with the standing external rotation in the scapular plane. And then these next three were all about the same. Doesn't seem to be a huge difference between these, with 48, 46, and 44% going from top down. The only difference in this group compared to the infraspinatus group is the prone horizontal abduction at 100% with full external rotation. So that is the picture in the very bottom corner, where he's laying on his stomach with his arm out straight. He's going to be going down and up. And that showed to be about 44%, which was adequate for this research. Next, we'll move on to the supraspinatus muscle. So the prone horizontal abduction at 100 degrees with full external rotation, which is the picture in the top corner, had by far the most muscle activation compared to the other two. Another good one for the supraspinatus muscle was, again, laying on the stomach, so prone external rotation and 90 degrees of abduction. So that's the picture in the bottom corner there. These next two, and even the two below it, would be almost the second tier compared to those first two we just went over. So standing external rotation at 90 degrees, which is in the bottom corner, and then side lying external rotation at 0 degrees, which is in the top corner. And again, these are for the supraspinatus muscle. So if we were to look at this research from Myers et al. From 2005, and so this one, they did resistance tubing exercises for throwers, and they went and did the electromyography or the EMG for a group of exercises that are commonly used with throwing athletes. So with the infraspinatus, again, they found the two best exercises in their research was external rotation at 90 degrees and shoulder extension at 50 degrees. An interesting thing when you are going to compare all these research studies together, you might find some variation. And you can see that in this one with at the very top, they have external rotation at 0 degrees abduction, which back in the Reynolds study was the highest. Again, in this one, they got 46% of MVIC, which is okay, but not quite as good as shoulder extension and external rotation. So again, with the same Myers study with the teres minor muscle, this one is pretty interesting. If you look at the MVIC numbers, every single one of them is above 40. It's above 50. I'm the lowest on here is the internal rotation and 90 degrees abduction, which was 63%. But you have some of these exercises like shoulder flexion and high scapular rows and low scapular rows, which got over 100%. And you can see in the picture what he's doing there is the high scapular row. So a middle scapular row is you would just drop the resistance down so it's about equal with the shoulder, and then a low scapular row would be where you're rowing with the band below the shoulder. So Myers et al., again looking at the subscapularis. Again, this isn't what I would have expected, but similar to the teres minor, every single one of these exercises they did was above 50%. The worst exercise for the subscapularis was external rotation and 90 degrees abduction at 56%. But you can see the red box are around all of the highest, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 exercises that had 70+% of MVIC. So, at least according to this research, a lot of these were good activators for the subscapularis. So then to contrast Myers et al., looking at the supraspinatus, again, there's quite a few in the 40s, which is okay. Only one in the 50s is external rotation at 90 degrees. Not necessarily what you would expect to be the highest contractor for this supraspinatus muscle. But again, that's why you look at the research for this. So the next research is by Decker et al. And so in this one, they were looking specifically at the subscapularis muscle activity with common rehab exercises. So they measured all the rotator cuff muscles, but they were primarily looking at the subscapularis muscle, which is most active in internal rotation, which is why they chose the exercises they did. The only exercise they found the infraspinatus was really substantially active in was the push-up plus exercise. You got 104% out of that. This is that same research from Decker et al., trying to look specifically at the subscapularis. So not a lot of activity in the teres minor in any of these exercises, again, except for the push-up plus. Same Decker et al. And with the supraspinatus, again, the push-up plus, and as well, this time the standing dynamic scapular hug, which after reading it, it is more of like a standing, almost bench press type motion, but with the arms bent. If you were to imagine you're standing with weight, with a resistance cable in both your hands, and you're going to give someone a hug. That's what the standing dynamic scapular hug exercise is. And then Decker et al., this is the muscle group they were trying to really look at, the subscapularis. So you would expect that a lot of these exercises would have a high MVIC, which they all do. The top four, or the highest of the MVIC, are the ones highlighted in red. Push-up plus, again, was by far the highest of any of these four. If you remember from all four, push-up plus actually had substantial activity of every rotator cuff muscle, according to this research by Decker et al. So push-up plus. Moving on, this is research from Yule et al. From 2003. They're looking, in this research, they look specifically at weight-bearing exercise, so exercises where you're putting weight through the arms. And so they had a few different names for exercises. So this prayer exercise is the picture in the top right-hand corner. Quadruped is on hands and knees. Tripod is where you're lifting one arm off, which is the picture in the top left. Pointer, or it's commonly, I've seen it as the bird dog exercise. So that's in the bottom and the middle. And then obviously a push-up with your feet elevated, and one arm push-up. The pointer and the push-up were okay. They got 42 and 44% MVIC, which is, depending on who you ask, 40 is the cutoff. Those barely made it. The two that showed pretty good were the push-ups with the feet elevated, and then the one-arm push-up were, as far as the infraspinatus is concerned, good activators. The only other rotator cuff muscle they looked at with this research by Yule et al. Was the supraspinatus. And you can see that none of the exercises they did got anywhere close to that 40% number, even the one-arm push-up. So if you're looking to do a weight-bearing exercise for the supraspinatus, you may need to look at something other than the ones listed here. So the last research article we're going to go over is by Townsend et al., and they went through quite a number of exercises. So for the infraspinatus, the top 5 are the ones I highlighted in red. There are a few others that were above. For them, their cutoff, they actually used 50%. So anything less than 50%, they just did. Less than 50, they didn't give a specific number for. But again, going back to that first research article with Reinhold et al., side-lying external rotation at 0 degrees abduction, or the picture on the right showed 85%. The only one that was better was the prone horizontal abduction at 90 degrees with external rotation. So that is where you're laying on your stomach. Your hand is out straight to the side. You're going to point your thumb up to the ceiling, and then you're going to go up and down. The difference between external rotation and internal rotation, or those two exercises in the middle, is that external rotation, your thumb is going to be up. Internal rotation, the thumb is going to be down as you're doing the exercise. So then, again, Townsend et al. Looking at the supraspinatus. So the top 4 I have highlighted in red. It looks like those were really the only 4 exercises that had MVIC above what they determined was adequate for them, which was 50%. But again, supraspinatus, what you would expect is flexion and scaption would have the highest activity, which is exactly what that shows. So with the subscapularis muscle from the Townsend group, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. I forgot to highlight the military press there, but also scaption, abduction, and flexion all above 120 degrees with external rotation or the thumb up. All of those had adequate activation of the subscapularis muscle. And then lastly, with Townsend et al., the teres minor, again, you would expect these to be pretty similar to the infraspinatus just based on anatomy. And you can see that with side-lying external rotation being the best, and then followed by the prone horizontal abduction with internal and external rotation are the next two. So hopefully this quick review gave you an idea of if you're looking to target a specific muscle or a few specific muscles, give you some ideas as far as which muscles are more active with specific exercises, especially if you're looking to rehab or to try and target a specific muscle. Here's the references, so you can go look at these on your own if you so desire. Thank you for the listen. Bye.